Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Silver Spring. My name is Bonnie Gallion, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. Whether you're joining us here in the sanctuary or on Zoom, I'm glad you've joined us today. From a diversity of cultures, sexualities, genders, and beliefs, we come together into one congregation. Here, we are always growing, always learning, and always loved. We are glad you are here, and we welcome you in the fullness of who you are. If you're visiting with us for the first or second time, or if you'd like to learn about how you can join our church, please be sure to find Esther McBride, our welcoming captain, after today's service. In this month, we focus on service. This week, where nerds and bakers alike celebrate pie, the question arises, who do we serve, and who and what serves us? Thank you for joining us this Sunday for service on Womanism, Sanctified Imagination, pie, and Holy Troublemaker Rev. Wil Gafney. Today, we will center the irrational. Today, we will celebrate imagination and love. Today, we honor pie and, the mathematical concept and the delicious baked good. I hope you will stay after the service to share in pie and perhaps take a moment to walk our labyrinth, here in the center of the room today. About halfway through today's service, children and youth will be invited to go with our trained and background-checked staff and volunteers to do some age-targeted learning together. Grown-ups should pick up their kids from the fellowship house right after the service. Everyone is invited to join us here again after the service for pie, coffee, and a chance to walk the labyrinth on the center of the floor. Now it's time to greet one another. I invite those on Zoom to greet one another in the chat, while those of us here in person get up and greet our neighbors around the sanctuary. When the music starts, please head back to your seat and stay standing for our opening hymn. And the words of the hymn will be on the screen.
We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle.
Number 212 is what we're singing.
We are dancing Sarah's circle. Sisters, brothers, all. Here we seek and find our history. Here we seek and
Do we have lyrics for slides?
our history.
No?
Here we seek and find our history. Sisters, brothers, all. We will all do our own naming. We will all do our own naming. We will all do our own naming. Sisters, brothers, all.
Every round a generation.
Every round a generation, every round a generation, every round a generation, sisters, brothers, all.
On and on, the circle's moving.
On and on, a circle's moving. On and on, the circle's moving. On and on, the circle's moving. Sisters, brothers, all.
I'm so glad I picked simple hymns for this Sunday, but if anyone wants a hymnal, I believe we're only doing things that are either in the gray hymnal or not in a hymnal today. So if anyone wants to grab a gray hymnal from the cart, this is what we've been trying so that we can move the seats around without books falling everywhere. New methods. So please feel free at any point when you want to go grab. The next time you will need it is at the very end of the service for that final hymn. So if you want to grab one at any point before that final hymn, that'll be hymn number 155 at the end of the service. All right, so welcome to the circle, beloveds. I am the Reverend Caitlin Cotter-Koilberg, pronouns she, her, hers, your minister of spiritual growth, and I offer you now these words by the Reverend Kathy Ryan Starr. Welcome to this place of peace. May we find some moments of quiet contemplation. Welcome to this place of celebration. May our hearts soar with gratitude for the gift of life. Welcome to this place of sacred love. May we gently hold all that is broken here. Welcome to this place of inquiry. Here may we be challenged to open our minds and hearts ever wider. Come into this place of community. May we together draw the circle of love and justice ever wider. Welcome to this sacred place. Come, let us worship, celebrate, grieve, and love together. And at this time, I'm going to invite us to, we're going to do call and response because we have some new folks here and we don't have the words on the screen. So Bonnie's going to light the chalice, and I'm going to do a call and response chalice lighting for you. So I'll say the words, and then you say them back. May this light warm our hearts with love and caring, and guide us in the ways of truth. And then usually we'd have a congregational commitment slide up there. So this one's a little longer. Stay with me. We can do it. As we gather here for worship, we pledge ourselves to the endless search for truth, to the right of each to believe, as mind, heart, and conscience dictate, to accept the responsibilities this freedom commands, and to implement our belief in the essential worth and dignity of every human being.
May this light warm our hearts with love and caring, and guide us in the ways of truth.
So today our kids, when they head over to the fellowship house with our esteemed teachers, thank you teachers, are going to be talking about the Reverend Dr. Wilda C. Gafney, or Dr. Wil Gafney for short. Has anyone heard of Dr. Gafney? Yay! Of course you two have. Fabulous. She is known particularly for her work centering the stories of women and girls in the Hebrew and Christian holy texts. She's on social media doing her public intellectual work, which I really appreciate. She uses what in the Black church is called her sanctified imagination. Have you heard this phrase before? It's a way of diving into a text in this way that reflects the lived experience of the congregation. And I'll be talking about her more in the sermon. So I was thinking with Dr. Gafney, I really wanted to do a story about women or girls, and then it was Pie Day, and I was like, I think I need to tell my favorite pie story. So some of you may have heard this story before, but I wanted to lift up again one of my favorite stories about women and pie and the civil rights movement, right? Yes. So today's story is an adapted version of Pies from Nowhere by Dee Ramito, which is the tale of how Georgia Gilmore sustained the Montgomery bus boycott, right? Like pie, I love this story because pie can be delicious and also it can help us make really important social change. So Georgia was a cook at the National Lunch Company in downtown Montgomery, Alabama. Because of segregation laws, the restaurant where she served was separated into two sections, right? One side for white customers, one side for black customers. Georgia knew this was wrong, but that was the way things had been, right, for a while. Then on December 1st, 1955, Georgia was working at the restaurant when a news alert came over the radio. An African woman named Rosa Parks had been arrested for what? What'd she do? Right, refusing to give up her seat on the bus, right, to a white passenger. Rosa was tired of giving into rules that were unjust. Remember last month we talked about how she didn't stay seated because she was tired. She stayed seated because she was tired of injustice, right? Difference. And she wasn't the only one, right, who was dreaming of a better and more equitable world. So the next day, a flyer was passed around the black community in Montgomery asking people to boycott public transportation on Monday. It said, please stay off all buses. That day, Georgia watched as buses drove down the street, one after another, empty, empty, empty. Because she'd been treated poorly by the driver so many times before, Georgia herself hadn't actually ridden the bus in 2 months. Still, she wanted to be a part of the movement she saw growing. So Georgia decided to help the best way she knew how. What do you think she did? Yes, she baked. That's right. And not only did she bake, but she got together a whole group of women. Georgia was an organizer, a baker, someone who brought things together and made something new out of them, right? So she grew a group of women together and they went to work cooking. They sold sandwiches, they sold dinners in their neighborhoods, they sold baked goods to local stores, groceries, laundromats, and beauty shops, and people paid in cash so that they wouldn't be connected in aiding the boycott. As the bus boycotters walked and walked, Georgia cooked, and boy, did the people of Montgomery love her food, especially her pies. Georgia's group donated the profits from their sales to the Montgomery Improvement Association, which helped fund the boycott. But if anyone had found out what these women were doing, right, they would have lost their jobs. So Georgia ran the operation, and the other women acted as secret helpers, and people paid in cash. And whenever anybody asked where the money come from, she remembered her promise, right, to keep it a secret. It came from nowhere, she'd say. And because of this, her brave group of women bakers became known as the Club from Nowhere. The club not only raised enough to purchase gas for the carpool system that had been set up for the boycott, but they were also able to buy station wagons to aid the effort and help get people where they needed to go. Montgomery didn't want their buses continuing to lose money, so the city did what it could to stop the protesters and their efforts, right? Reverend Dr. King and 89 others were arrested for their roles in the boycott, and Georgia was called to speak in court about an instance where a bus driver had mistreated her. Georgia knew she was doing the right thing by standing up for her fellow protesters, but news of the trial spread across the country like wildfire. And when the National Lunch Company, everyone growled at them, grrr, found out she was part of the boycott, she was fired from her job. Everyone, you can growl at them again. right? Georgia was unemployed and raising 6 children on her own. Can you imagine? She needed to find a new way to support her family. Dr. King encouraged her to start her own business. All these years, you've worked for somebody else. Now it's time you worked for yourself, he said. And soon enough, there were long lines to get a meal cooked by her. She was providing good food for her community, but she was also bringing the people of Montgomery together, black and white, where Georgia served. And from her kitchen, her food, it was always integrated. And because civil rights leaders knew that they could trust Georgia, her home became a place for important and often secret meetings. I love that, right? Can you imagine here's the person we trust who's also the best baker we know, so all the meetings are at her house, right? We nourish the movement in lots of ways, and sometimes it gets real literal. On November 13th, 1956, Georgia was cooking in her kitchen, listening to music on the radio when the station interrupted the song to deliver the news. The Supreme Court had declared that segregation on buses was illegal. Right? The boycotters had won. Still, there were more battles to fight, more marches to happen. So Georgia Gilmore kept right on cooking.
March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. Oh, I'm an army of one. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. Oh, I'm an army of one. Rent is packing heat 'cause you can't work one days. Underpaid teachers, police in the office. Get yourself a weapon and head for the gun range.
Cut the crap, you ain't going to the gun range.
Standing with Emma and our sons and daughters, watching our youth have to solve our problems. I follow them, but who's coming with me? Half of you love me, half already hate me. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. Oh, I'm an army of one. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. Oh, I'm an army of one. Tell the old boys in the white bread lobby what the cannon can't do with their bodies. Riches are rising, cities are sinking.
Cut the crap, you know your city is sinking.
Lies are truth, and big truth's fiction. Everybody's talking, but who's gonna listen? Everybody happening in Helsinki. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. Oh, I'm an army of one. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. Oh, I'm an army of one. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. Oh, I'm an army of one. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. Oh, I'm an army of one.
I invite us to breathe together. If focusing on your breath is something good for your body, I invite you to do so. I invite you to breathe in love and breathe out peace into this room. I invite you to center down into the wisdom deep within yourself. So in a moment, we will join together in a moment of quiet for meditation, reflection, or prayer. If you have suffered a deep loss in the last year, you may stand or raise your hand during the silence if you wish, so everyone here can bear witness to your grief. Now let us prepare to be fully present, heart, mind, and body in this time of quiet, grateful for the sounds of life all around us.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that we love. I rest in this holding all. We rest in this loving us. There is a love holding all that we lost. There is a love holding all that we all. We there is a love holding all we know. We rest in this love. We rest in this love.
I invite you now into a time of prayer. I invite you to get comfortable in your seat, perhaps with your feet on the floor, your hands in your lap. You may wish to rest your eyes on the chalice in the middle of our circle or close them. Spirit of life and love, in this circle we have gathered today, hearts hurting, minds yearning. There is so much we wish for, so much we actively hope for, so much we grieve. We ache for those lost to hate and greed and toxic nonsense, as well as those lost to disease. We rage against small-minded laws and policies that cause unending ripples of harm and ever-increasing inequity. We chafe against the legacy of injustice we have inherited and grit our teeth in the face of history repeating, no matter how many times the world has said, never again. There is so much happening in the world beyond this circle that tests our spiritual ancestors' belief in the potential goodness of humankind. What can we have faith in? What can we trust? Who can we look to in times like these? This week, we celebrate pi, the ratio of the circumference of any circle to the diameter of that circle. Regardless of the circle's side, this ratio will always equal pi. In decimal form, the value of pi is approximately 3.14. But we celebrate that pi is an irrational number, meaning that its decimal form neither ends nor becomes repetitive. We celebrate pi as an excuse to eat baked goods that happen to be called pies. And as a reminder that we are a religious tradition centered on an irrational concept, one that neither ends nor becomes repetitive, one that helps us to draw circles and draw them wide again and again. We Unitarian Universalists put our faith in love. Put love in the center, a bright, warm beacon, a promise, a commitment, a reminder. Spirit of life and love, in this time of great loneliness, may we be people of connection. In this time of great hunger, may we nourish others and be fed in turn. In this time of violence and horrors, may we be agents of courage and peace. May we live love and know that we are loved and held in love every day of our lives. May we use our loving hands to do the work of the world and to feed each other. May we draw the circle wide, moving from I to we again and again. Amen. Now, children and youth of all ages are always welcome here in the sanctuary and in the circle of our community. But most Sundays, we welcome to join kids in elementary through middle through high school to join us in the fellowship house with our trained and background-checked volunteers. If you are a kid and you'd like to go to the fellowship house with our RE teachers today, I invite you to follow those teachers as the congregation sings you on our way. And Michael's going to lead us in the song. So those of you who already know the words, please sing along to Michael.
Our time together is sacred, but now it's time to part. Though we'll miss being together, you're always right here in my heart.
As I reflected on what pie means to me, I focused on a few lessons that I would like to share. I thought about pie contests. I was in a 4th of July pie eating contest a while back, which was tons of fun. I did it for the free pie. I bake a lot of pies that I think are delicious, but I never wanted to enter a pie baking contest. I think I'm afraid of being judged. I like my pies, but what would they think of them? Why am I scared of my pie being judged? It's an inanimate object. Maybe I'm judging myself? What lesson can I learn from pie about self-judgment? Each ingredient in a pie has its own part, just like each aspect of ourselves contributes to who we are as individuals. When you slice into a pie, we sometimes analyze ourselves, like dissecting every aspect of who we are, just like you might examine a pie's layers. Sometimes we focus a bit too much on the imperfections, the perceived flaws, or forgetting to appreciate the whole picture. When I bake a pie, I don't obsess over one small burnt spot on the crust or a slightly uneven filling. Instead, I savor the entirety of the pie, the combination of flavors, the effort put into its creation, and the joy it brings when I share it with others. Maybe I should extend the grace, the beauty and imperfection I afford to my pies to myself, to not dwell on my shortcomings, embrace my entirety, the quirks, the strengths, the weaknesses, as part of what makes me unique. Just like every slice of pie offers something different, each facet of ourselves contributes to our identity. The next lesson I pondered over pie was about balance. Great pies are properly balanced. Too much sugar, it's too sweet. Not enough, might be tasteless or bitter. I too must strive for balance in my self-reflection, acknowledging both my strengths and areas for growth without tipping too far in either direction. The last lesson is the joy of sharing. Just as I delight in offering a slice of pie to a friend or loved one, I should also share my true self with others. By opening up and embracing vulnerability, we create connections built on authenticity and trust. So, as you indulge in your pie today, take a moment to reflect on the lessons it offers. Embrace your entirety. Find balance in self-reflection and share your true self with the world. After all, life is too short to withhold the sweetness and savoriness of who you are.
So during my study leave a few weeks ago, I went once again to the Museum of African American History and Culture. I went in part to see again the wonderful exhibit on Afrofuturism, eager to experience it this time without the distraction of two active, curious toddlers. And if you missed our field trip to see that last year, it's not too late. Go see it, right? We need to find ways to celebrate imagination. And on this trip, I went to sit for a minute in the cafeteria space because I always make sure to center food when I'm taking a day for thought-inducing adventures. And yes, right, we were talking yesterday about how it's one of the best cafeterias in the city. And yes, you can absolutely tell me your favorite museum cafeterias if you have opinions about that. But anyway, this time I got my small baked treat and I went to the back of the cafeteria where it looks like that, right? It's a long counter set up to look like an extended version of the famous Greensboro lunch counter from that first sit-in with you see that big photo of that famous protest filling the wall all the way up to the ceiling. They also have smaller photos displayed closer to the seating, and I found myself sitting in front of a picture titled simply, "Two Women Leading a Sit-In." I tried to do some research and figure out who these women are, and I couldn't find that information. I'm not sure anyone knows. It's just two women leading a sit-in. I meant to focus on the book I'd brought with me, on my baked treat, on what I might do with the rest of my day, but I found myself simply sitting with those two women across the distance of time and our difference of circumstances, thinking about our theme of service in a different way. Our theme of the month is service, and I found myself looking at these two women being refused service and thinking about what that meant and what it meant to refuse to serve and who we are asking to serve and what that means. So I'd intended to head out, and I found myself instead going back to the history part of that museum, which I can only do in small chunks. And I found myself the rest of the day dwelling, right, in the reality of 400 years of chattel slavery on this continent. I just kept thinking about that number, 400 years of chattel slavery on this continent, on Jim Crow, which went on for so long, on the women of the civil rights movement and present-day Black women, and especially Black women religious leaders. Thinking about how, as religious educator Cristina Rivera talked about in a panel I went to on Friday, we have a liberator theology that says we are all responsible for getting us all free. I think about the work we are called to do as Unitarian Universalists to take liberation seriously, and how that's making sure we'll all served, right? Not separated, not marginalized, but served from the welcome table. I see how this congregation is taking seriously the need to make sure that we're accessible to each other, right? And how that's a part of this call, and how we're centering, right? Those who have served, how we are invited to eat our beautifully imperfect pie together, connect with each other and with the stories of those who came before us. Earlier, I told that story, right, about Georgia Gilmore, who sustained the Montgomery bus boycott by selling pies, whose kitchen and dining room nurtured so much of the civil rights movement, even after that one battle was won. I love that story, because it reminds us, it calls us to look for those who are so often on the margins of the big stories we tell, right? We have carved the story of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. into the rock of this country in the most literal way possible. But what about the others who are part of that movement, right? We've listed up this year angelic troublemaker Bayard Rustin, who was pushed to the sidelines for being out and proud as a gay man, whose Quaker values and brilliant mind shaped the successful tactics of the civil rights movement. But there are others. There's so many others who have been pushed to the margins of these stories. I think about the women of the civil rights movement, the women of SNCC, the women of the Black Panthers, right? Like you can't tell these stories without remembering everyone who's a part. And of course, I know I'm thinking about this because yesterday was International Women's Day, right? Or actually, it's International Working Women's Day, right? Is what the original holiday was, that this is a holiday about those who serve us in ways that often don't get recognized and celebrated. And this is the work of Unitarian Universalism, something we've been doing really hard, working hard to, not to push specifically the women into the margins of how we tell the story of our own tradition, how we have been centering women more and more, right? That now we are a denomination whose ministers are mostly women, right? Like that's a specific history. And we've watched our tradition be shaped and changed by women more and more. We finally even started electing women to the position of president of our denomination. I know I'm thinking about this because thinking about General Assembly coming later and how we recently elected the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, and last summer at General Assembly elected the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, who is, of course, one of also our leading womanist theologians. Do y'all know what womanism is? Yeah, I see some thumbs up. It's a term first defined by Alice Walker. It means for a Black feminist or a feminist of color. Walker famously said, "Womanism is to feminist as purple is to lavender." Meaning that womanism is this richer. And I've been thinking this week how it's like womanism as to feminism as purple is to like Barbie pink, because it's much harder to commercialize womanism in a lot of ways. Dr. Wil Gafney says, most simply, womanism is Black women's feminism. It emerged as Black women's intellectual and interpretive response to racism and classism and feminism, and its articulation and in response to sexism and Black liberationist thought. Womanism includes the radical equalitarianism of feminism, the emancipatory ethic and reverence for Black physical and cultural aesthetics of the Black liberation movement, and the transformational trajectories of both movements. I just love how she talks. Transformational trajectories. I would like to be on who wants to be on a transformational trajectory with me, especially if we're fueling it with pie, right? I've been spending a lot of time listening to Dr. Wil Gafney, who identifies herself on social media as a womanist biblical scholar by training, public theologian and activist by necessity, Episcopal priest with a foot in the Black church, sci-fi fantasy and vampire geek, author, professor, public commentator on politics, film, and TV, cat companion, and plant killer. She's also a longtime member of a synagogue and a practitioner of Midrash and a former army chaplain. Basically, a thoroughly amazing human being. This is one of the people we've been lifting up with the kids as we talk about sacred troublemakers over there. So I wanted to bring her into the room with us over here today. I appreciate her reminders that women like me cannot be a womanist because I'm white. Womanism is something done by Black women, by women of color. I'm always going to be a white feminist, but I can aim to be in collaboration with womanism. Just like I aim, like I talked about last month, to be an accomplice in the work of anti-racism. I want to be a collaborator and an accomplice in this work. And I also wanted to de-center myself a little today, which is part of why I'm talking to you from over here instead of at the center. I love that we're centering the music today and centering our chalice, and then we put our speaker spot over here. Now, in the Christian calendar today, churches everywhere are honoring the fourth Sunday of Lent. So one of the things I did for this service is I went out and bought some of her books. And this is a time, Dr. Gafney tells us, traditionally focused on joy and rejoicing. So this is the week of Lent of joy and rejoicing and pie. Hooray! The theme that a lot of Catholic churches everywhere will be celebrating today is love, and the love we ought to have for each other and God's love for the world. So in her Womanist lectionary, which is a really cool resource, and now I can say I own a lectionary, and it's the only one I own, and I kind of love that. She pulls from the Gospel of John 4:7. Beloveds, let us love one another, because love is from God, and everyone is born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love. Beloved, if God loves us thus, we ought also love one another. God no one has ever seen, yet if we love one another, God lives in us, and God's love is made complete in us. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we don't have a set stance on God at this point in our theological trajectory. Some of us believe in God, some of us believe in good, some of us find our spiritual connection in nature or in polytheistic traditions, ancient and new. What we do have is a firm stance on love. Love at the center of our tradition, not the commercialized romantic love now on clearance in the CVS, but the love that calls us to action, to relationship, to compassion and care and courage. For sure, we know that if we love each other, if we care for each other in real embodied ways, then good lives in us and through us, right? We celebrate love as an action word. We celebrate a love that is irrational, like the mathematical symbol pi, love that is sweet and nourishing, like the pies Georgia Gilmore baked that many of you baked today. Thank you, everyone who baked. Love that reminds us to lift up the stories and the people that those in power would have us forget, to collaborate and to use our sacred imaginations together. Love that reminds us that white supremacy culture serves none of us, but that love and compassion and courage benefit us all. That reminds us to sit with each other across our differences, to pause and be present with each other and ourselves. For love to live in us and through us, we need each other. We must make sure that ours is a welcoming table where those who have historically been pushed to the margins know they will be served and nourished, where to serve each other is an honor born from the love we have for each other and our community, where we honor those who serve us and have served us, which also, yes, I want to remind everyone that one of the spiritual values that we try to do as Unitarian Universalists is to tip as much as we can. So if you go out to eat today, I want to remind you that these days, the least you should ever tip is 20%, and you should tip as much as you can. 20% is the new minimum, friends. May this be a community, too, where we honor rest and invite each other into deep rest and generally rebel against a system that tells us our value is only in what we produce and how we serve. May we remember, as religious educator Joy Berry put it, we too are the ancestors of what will come. She said that in the thing I went on Friday, and just wanted to bring that into the room again today. We too are the ancestors of what will come. May we know our own worthiness and know we are loved.
Today we celebrate pie, knowing, as Rev Kristen says, that pie is delicious, but each pie is limited in terms of how many people get a slice. Our faith is more like the mathematical symbol pi, sometimes hard to fully comprehend, yet expansive and endless in how far it can go. So too, when we think about our community, about what we can give, and what we're served, and what serves us, it's worthwhile to think not of a pie with only a certain amount of slices to go around, not a finite, limited resource, but as pie as a concept of infinite possibility. Today, we celebrate pie as a symbol of welcome, of resistance, of acceptance, and of generosity. For truly, we can bake more pie. We can sustain our community through our warmth, our sweet and savory compassion, our infinite care, and our generosity. We can draw the circle wide, and wider still. There are a lot of ways to make your offering to UCSS and help this congregation serve our mission and live into our vision. If you're here in person, you can also place your offering in one of the offering plates as it's passed around in just a moment. Now please join me in dedicating our offering to the mission of this congregation. To create joyful spiritual community where we connect deeply, serve and mobilize our collective liberation. The offering will now be gratefully given and received.
Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide.
Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one is alone, we'll be side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide.
I'd like to welcome Catherine Buckler.
Hello. Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Okay, hello. My name is Catherine Buckler, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees. My pronouns are she and her. We gather for worship every Sunday morning here at UUCSS, both in person and by Zoom, some days. But Sunday mornings are just one small part of who we are and what we do as a congregation. We are a vibrant collective of lay volunteers, leaders, and paid staff. We are growing relationships with our neighbors here in Silver Spring. We are a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and we are one small part of the global UU faith movement. I hope everyone will look at the ways to connect highlighted in the printed program the Sunday support team handed out as you came in. We also have 4 announcements we'd like to draw special attention to this morning. Our first announcement is about reserving space to meet here at UUCSS. It has been wonderful to see so many new activities and groups forming here at church. But especially while the community building isn't usable during renovations, it is more important now than ever to make a reservation anytime a committee or a group wishes to meet on campus. Recently, we have had instances when more than one group has shown up to use the same space. Moving forward, in order to prevent this from happening, please contact Jeanette, our office administrator, at administrator@uucss.org, or you can call probably the main office, but email's probably best, to ensure space is available before you publicize a meeting or event on campus, particularly on Sundays before or after the service, which tends to be a popular time for these things. Number 2. Second, a service in celebration and memory of the life of Val Williams, wife of Greg Harry and mother of Morgan Harry, will be held here at UUCSS next Sunday, March 17 at 3:00 p.m. Third, the Women's Retreat, woohoo, is scheduled for Friday, April 26th to Sunday, April 28th at the Claggett Center near Frederick. For the link to register, please check out the all-church email. If you're not on that, talk to somebody in the membership group back there. UCSS Facebook page and the March issue of the Uniter. If you'd like to learn more, if you'd like to learn more, talk to Carol Hamilton. Are you going to have a meeting or just people find you? People find Carol afterwards and she will give you information. I think there was a space issue trying to find a place to meet, so reserve if you need to schedule something. This retreat is for cis and trans women as well as non-binary people non-binary people who are comfortable in a space that centers the experience of women. 4, our Defending Democracy Committee is joining the READ Project for Voting Rights at All Souls Church in a postcard campaign to get out the vote for 2024 in alliance with Reclaim Our Vote. Many of you contributed your time and energy in the 2020 and 2022 elections in this effort to increase BIPOC voter turnout by providing important election information and highlighting key issues in critical states. If you are interested in becoming a voting rights advocate through this simple and effective method of reaching the voting public, come to the table at the back of the sanctuary after the service today and speak with Mary Beth Lerner or Florence Foltz of the Defending Democracy Committee. They have postcards and labels at the ready and will supply you with the information you need to get started. The current campaign is in Fulton County, Georgia. Also, number 5, final announcement. Everyone is welcome to stay in this space after the service for coffee, pie, and to walk the labyrinth, and we'll need help putting chairs back at the end. Thank you.
All right, we're going to do our Chalice extinguishing words as a call and response again, as not all of us have them memorized. Or we discovered yesterday, sometimes even when we think we have them memorized, we're wrong. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. And our final hymn is number 155 in your gray hymnal. If you don't have a gray hymnal and you'd like to look at the words, it's Circle Round for Freedom, which is fairly simple. But if you'd like words and you don't have a hymnal, just raise your hand and we'll bring you one.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Again. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle round for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
So, dear ones, in closing, I offer you this poem by Reverend Hannah Roberts Villeneuve. What a circle can contain, the reach of its round arms, the space it can maintain, is a function of the radius, the distance from the center to the margin, and a quirky little constant called pi. The constant knows just what to do, how to keep the integrity of the circle, how to ensure that no matter how far you extend the distance from the center to the edge, no matter how expansive the circle may become, it will remain a circle, perfect, whole. Indeed, the constant is defined by the circle. It is the very essence of the circle itself. The constant in our circle? There are many possible answers. You might earnestly say that it's reason, or suggest coffee with a wink. But the great constant, studied for thousands of years and yet unknowable in its fullness, taught to generations of dutiful students with increasing specificity of decimals and yet still in the end a mystery, still in the end a mystery, is love. Our worship now ends, and our service begins.
You just sing the postlude along with us. If you want to turn to number 323, it's in the form of a hymn. So we'll do all 3 verses with it.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not the circle, make it wider still, till it includes and embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom one with humor spoken, and people deep the store of right and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken? Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, still eye to eye with laughter and elation.
All right, so now is the time of Pi and Labyrinth. If I could get some help from everyone who's in the most center circle in the row right behind it, we want to push the chairs back so people can walk the labyrinth. And I'm going to move up a table with rocks in it. So you're invited as you walk the labyrinth to bring a stone in and then carry out an acorn. Remember to make space for each other as you pass each other in the labyrinth. So thank you all.